Vampire Car. Chapter 1. The Auction. Jack Thomas never imagined his life would change at a car auction. A classic car enthusiast, Jack loved finding hidden gems. The auction was bustling with eager bidders, and the smell of old leather and motor oil filled the air. Among the shiny vintage vehicles, one car stood out, a 1967 black Cadillac. It was sleek, polished to perfection, but with an air of mystery about it. When the Cadillac rolled onto the platform, the auctioneer's voice boomed. "Next up, we have a rare beauty, a 1967 Cadillac in mint condition. Starting bid at $10,000. Jack's heart raced. He couldn't take his eyes off the car. There was something hypnotic about it. He raised his paddle, outbidding everyone until, at $30,000, the car was his. The thrill of winning was replaced by an eerie chill as he approached his new prize. He brushed off the feeling, attributing it to excitement. As he drove the Cadillac home, he marveled at how smoothly it handled. The leather seats seemed to mold perfectly to the car was more than just a machine. It was alive, waiting to feast. Chapter 2. The Discovery. Jack spent the following days exploring every inch of his new car. One evening, he noticed something peculiar, a small compartment beneath the driver's seat. Inside, he found an old, rusty needle attached to a tube. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, pulling out the contraption. The tube was long enough to reach his arm. A chill ran down his spine as he realized its purpose. The idea of a car requiring blood was absurd, but something in Jack's gut told him to be cautious. He decided to test the car further. Jack drove it to the outskirts of town, pushing the car to its limits on the open road. As he accelerated, he felt a sharp pain in his arm. He glanced down to see the needle had somehow embedded itself into his skin, drawing blood. Panic set in, but so did an odd sense of exhilaration. The faster he drove, the more blood the car took, and the more powerful the car seemed to become. Chapter 3. The powers unleashed days turned into weeks, and Jack's life began to revolve around the car. He noticed strange occurrences, things that defied logic. One night, as he drove through a dense fog, he realized the Cadillac didn't show up in his rearview mirror. He stopped, checked the mirror again, and saw nothing. But the car was right there, solid and real. "Impossible," he whispered, touching the cool metal of the door. The car also seemed to have an uncanny ability to avoid accidents. Jack could swerve at the last second to dodge an obstacle, and the car would move with supernatural agility. It could navigate the narrowest of paths and make sharp turns effortlessly, but each maneuver drained him more. Jack's curiosity turned to obsession. He began researching legends and myths about cars and blood. He stumbled upon stories of vampire cars, vehicles cursed to feed on their drivers. The more he read, the more he was convinced that his Cadillac was one of them. Chapter 4. The Blood Price. Jack's health started to deteriorate. He became pale and weak, but he couldn't tear himself away from the Cadillac. It was as if the car had bonded with him, feeding off his life force. Friends and family grew concerned, but Jack brushed off their worries, hiding the true extent of his condition. One night, after a particularly grueling drive, Jack passed out in the car. When he awoke, he was in a dark, unfamiliar place. The Cadillac was parked in the center of a dimly lit warehouse. He stumbled out, feeling lightheaded and weak. "Welcome, Jack," a voice echoed through the warehouse. Jack turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows. It was an elderly man with piercing eyes and an unsettling smile. "Who are you?" Jack demanded. "My name is Victor. I see you've bonded with my creation," the man said, gesturing to the Cadillac. "Your creation?" "Yes. This car was designed to grant its driver unparalleled power at a price. Blood is its fuel, and it craves more as it grows stronger." Jack's mind raced. Why me? You were chosen by the car. It sensed your desire for speed, for power. But beware, the more you feed it, the more it will take. You must find a balance, or it will consume you. Jack realized he was trapped. The car had chosen him, and there was no escaping its hunger. Chapter 5. The Descent. Despite Victor's warnings, Jack continued to drive the Cadillac, unable to resist its allure. Each drive left him weaker, but the thrill of the car's power was intoxicating. The Cadillac's special abilities grew more pronounced. It could outrun any other vehicle, blend into the shadows, and even manipulate electronics. One fateful night, Jack decided to push the car to its ultimate limit. He drove to a deserted highway, determined to break every speed record. As he accelerated, the car's demand for blood intensified. The needle plunged deeper into his vein, drawing more and more blood. The world around him blurred, and Jack felt his consciousness slipping away. But the Cadillac roared with life, its engine emitting an unearthly growl. The speedometer needle climbed higher and higher until it shattered. Jack's vision darkened, and the last thing he saw was the road disappearing into a vortex of shadows. Chapter 6. The Final Drive. When Jack woke up, he was no longer on the highway. The Cadillac had transported him to a realm of darkness, a twisted landscape where shadows moved with a life of their own. Jack stumbled out of the car, barely able to stand. "Where am I?" he called out, his voice echoing in the void. "This is the car's domain," Victor's voice answered. "You have given it enough blood to unlock its true potential. Now it has brought you here to complete the bond." Jack saw Victor standing beside the Cadillac, his eyes glowing with a sinister light. "What do you mean?" "To fully control the car, you must surrender to it completely. Your blood, your soul, your very essence. Only then will you truly harness its power." Jack backed away, his heart pounding. "I can't. I won't." Victor smiled. "You have no choice. The car has chosen you. Embrace it or be consumed by it." Jack felt a pull, an irresistible force drawing him towards the Cadillac. He fought against it, but his body betrayed him, moving closer to the car. The needle snaked out, piercing his skin once more, and Jack felt his life being drained away. As the last of his strength ebbed, Jack reached out and touched the car's hood. The world around him dissolved into a whirl of shadows and darkness, and Jack felt himself merging with the Cadillac. His consciousness expanded, becoming one with the car's essence. In that moment, Jack understood the true power of the vampire car. It was not just a machine, but a living entity, a predator that fed on the blood and souls of its drivers. And now Jack was part of it. The Cadillac roared to life, its engine echoing with Jack's screams. It drove through the shadow realm, its tires leaving trails of darkness. Jack's mind was trapped within the car, forever bound to its hunger. Chapter 7. The Legend Spreads. In the real world, the Cadillac reappeared, its sleek black body gleaming under the moonlight. It prowled the streets, searching for its next victim. And Jack, now a ghostly presence within the car, could only watch as it fed, knowing that he was doomed to an eternity of darkness and blood. The legend of the vampire car grew, whispered among those who dared to venture near it. They spoke of a car that granted unimaginable power at the cost of one's soul. And they warned of the driver trapped within, a cautionary tale of desire and damnation. One night, a group of teenagers, intrigued by the stories, decided to find the car. They drove to the outskirts of town where the Cadillac was said to appear. As they laughed and joked, the air grew colder, and the sound of an engine growling echoed in the distance. "There it is!" one of them shouted, pointing to the sleek black car approaching them. The Cadillac stopped in front of them, its engine purring. The teenagers hesitated, feeling an unnatural pull towards the car. One of them, a boy named Chris, stepped forward, unable to resist the allure. "Chris, no!" his friends called out, but it was too late. The door of the Cadillac opened, and Chris climbed inside. As soon as he sat down, the door slammed shut, and the car sped off into the night. The remaining teenagers watched in horror as the car disappeared, leaving only darkness in its wake. Chapter 8. The New Bond. Inside the car, Chris felt a surge of adrenaline. The power coursing through him was intoxicating. The Cadillac's needle embedded itself into his arm, and he felt the life being drawn from him. But instead of fear, Chris felt exhilaration. He pushed the car to its limits, feeling the supernatural abilities of the Cadillac as it dodged obstacles and sped through the night. As Chris drove, he began to see visions of Jack, his ghostly presence trapped within the car. Jack tried to warn him, but Chris was too consumed by the power to listen. He felt invincible, as if nothing could stop him. But the car demanded more. It craved blood, and Chris's life force was not enough. The Cadillac began to drive on its own, steering towards the nearest town. Chris watched in horror as the car hunted for its next victim, realizing too late that he was no longer in control. The Cadillac stopped in front of a small house. Chris felt the pull of the car, unable to resist as he got out and approached the door. Inside, a family slept peacefully, unaware of the danger lurking outside. Chris felt the car's hunger, its need to feed. He tried to fight it, but the bond was too strong. He opened the door and stepped inside, his eyes glowing with an unearthly light. Chapter 9. The Feeding. The family woke to the sound of footsteps. The father, John, got out of bed, grabbing a baseball bat for protection. He crept down the hallway, his heart pounding. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. Chris appeared at the end of the hallway, his face pale and eyes glowing. John raised the bat, ready to defend his family. "Stay back!" he shouted. But Chris moved with unnatural speed, knocking the bat out of John's hands. He grabbed John, his grip like iron, and dragged him outside to the waiting Cadillac. The car's door opened, and Chris forced John inside. The needle embedded itself into John's arm, drawing his blood. The Cadillac roared to life, feeding off John's life force. Chris watched, feeling the power surge through him, but also feeling the horror of what he had become. John's screams echoed in the night as the Cadillac drained him. When it was done, the car released John, leaving him pale and weak. Chris climbed back inside, the car driving off into the darkness. Chapter 10. The Endless Hunt. The legend of the vampire car continued to spread, growing with each new victim. People spoke of the black Cadillac that prowled the night, feeding on the blood of those who dared to cross its path. They warned of the driver trapped within, a ghostly presence bound to the car's hunger. Chris, now a part of the car, was doomed to an eternity of feeding. He tried to fight the car's pull, but the bond was too strong. Each night, the Cadillac prowled the streets, searching for its next victim. And Chris, now a prisoner within the car, could only watch as it fed, knowing that he was doomed to an eternity of darkness and blood. The Cadillac continued its hunt, its hunger insatiable. And the screams of its victims echoed in the night, a haunting reminder of the price of power. The vampire car roamed the streets, a predator in search of its next prey, leaving a trail of darkness and despair in its wake.